Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. So today's topic, with EVs you can have your cake and eat it too. Now what I mean by that is you have performance and efficiency, low operating expense, and very low maintenance, kind of all at the same time. I'm shooting this video from our BMW just because it's a good car to do the comparison with, primarily because the original MSRP of this car and my Model 3 is similar. The performance is similar. The level of features and comfort is very similar. Now, I did not say that those things are the same between the two cars, but this is not a direct comparison of each car. It's purely a comparison of hypermiling a gas car versus just normal use of an EV. So the Tesla Model 3 is rated at 130 mpge, so that would be the equivalent of miles per gallon. And if you look at the expense to charge and operate a Model 3 versus the cost of fuel, in that it's a roughly decent comparison. I mean, it will vary in different areas. The price of gas, the price of electricity varies, but we'll use that as a baseline. So, and that's been my experience, is that it's 120 to 135 miles per gallon equivalent in operating expense for the Model 3 versus if I were to be doing the same number of miles purchasing gas. Now, this car is typically going to be right around 24 or 25 miles per gallon. And for those that don't know, this is a 2019 BMW M240i. Convertible, obviously. We bought this car as just a weekend fun car. It's a convertible. So this car, 24-25 miles per gallon is what we get out of it just in normal driving. And so in the Model 3, that 130 mpge is based on 215 to 225 watt hours per mile, and which is right what I see with my Model 3. With this car, about 25 miles per gallon. So right off the bat, just the normal efficiency or range that you're going to get out of each car is the Model 3 is about 1/5 of the operating expense per mile, or about 5 times more efficient than this car, if you want to look at it that way. And now this car does have an Eco Pro mode, and right now I'm in Eco Pro, and if I let off the gas pedal like this, it shifts into neutral, and now I'm coasting. In Eco Pro, it tremendously diminishes the turbo boost that's allowed. It softens the throttle response. It makes the car just much more efficient. Now, in Eco Pro mode, if you just drive it normal and you don't really think about it, you're going to get maybe 28, 29 miles per gallon. I have found that if I really take it to the edge, and I mean, I stress over this, and I hypermile this thing, which hypermiling is just a term that says that you're looking for the highest possible miles per gallon. So if I get really crazy with this car and I hypermile it, and I use the engine start stop features, so the engine shuts off at stoplights, I coast as far as I can, I accelerate really slow, I do all of those things, the best that this car will give, the best I've ever seen, is just a shade over 35 miles per gallon. Now, pretty good for a high-performance sports car, but that is still only roughly a fourth, it's a third or a fourth of the efficiency of the Model 3. Now, if we really take it to the extreme, and we drive the Model 3 as hard as I can. Now, this isn't driving but just accelerating hard and overall driving the car very hard. The worst range that I've seen was 335 watt-hours per mile. Now that was me accelerating hard everywhere. It was on the expressway with the AC on and just overall doing everything as inefficient as possible. So 335 watt-hours per mile is the equivalent of about, say, 85 or 90 mpge. So if I hypermile this car versus driving the Model 3 as hard as I can, we're still at, say, 1/3 of the expense to operate the Model 3 versus this car. Now, if I drive, this car driving as efficiently as I can and the Model 3 as efficiently, I've hypermiled the Model 3 and I can see about 185 watt-hours per mile if I'm really ridiculous hypermiling that car and I'm ridiculous hypermiling this one. So if you compare the difference there, this is 35 miles per gallon, and that at 185 watt-hours per mile is going to be more along the lines of about, I'd say that's probably 180 mpge. So if you hypermile this car or the Model 3, you're still looking at about 1/5 of the energy consumption for the Model 3 versus this car. Now, I've had a number of people ask me, well, what about a Prius? I'd rather. What about a Prius or some other very high efficiency car, and compare that to the Model 3? Well, a Prius is going to be somewhat similar to my Ford C-Max hybrid, or at least the mileage I was seeing on my early Ford C-Max. I was averaging 50 miles per gallon lifetime average in that car, and that 50 miles per gallon lifetime average is still only about 40% of the efficiency of the Model 3. So the Model 3 is still well over twice as efficient. But that's an unfair comparison, because with the Model 3 you get luxury and performance, and you get a level of technology and refinement in a car that is beyond what a basic hybrid would give you. So I find that to be an unfair comparison, but I understand why people make the comparison. I've heard people say, well, let's compare a Nissan Leaf with a hybrid. And that's probably a better comparison for a number of reasons. One would be similar purchase price, although let's back up and say you can get a low spec Model 3 at this point that is not $50,000+. So, but you still get a level of refinement and performance out of the Model 3 that is beyond what you're going to see out of a hybrid. Now, if you compare, again, a Nissan Leaf or some of the other more standard range electric cars versus something like a Prius, that's probably a little bit of a better comparison, because again, the price comparison, performance is going to be similar, features are going to be similar, but you have to make sure that the range is going to be acceptable for your usage. And so that's where it differs. And this is part of the reason that I prefer comparing the Model 3 to other cars. Now, maybe someday I'll do a video on the steps to hypermiling a gas car, but I just wanted to share that I've had a number of people ask me, well, I'd rather just get a more standard gas car and just drive very, very carefully, very cautiously, and hypermile and save money on fuel that way. And now I'll say this, if you own a gas car and you're a hypermiler, that is great. It's one of the things I love about a stick shift car, like my Civic. That car was great. I could shift it into neutral and coast. Very small turbocharged engine. It was very efficient. Goodness, I could get over 50 miles to the gallon on that car, and it wasn't even a hybrid. side of it. But now, the subject matter of this video, having your cake and eating it too. So let's look at driving a sports car like this hard versus driving the Model 3 hard. Driving a Model 3 hard is, again, going to, now this isn't racetrack, this is just being your typical driver on the road that is a little less careful and cautious than the average, and tends to accelerate hard out of every intersection and that kind of thing. With the Model 3, you're going to see about 330 watt-hours per mile, or again, about, as I said before, maybe 80 miles to the gallon equivalent, something like that. Whereas if I drive this car hard, it's like 12 to 14 miles per gallon. So that's even a hybrid, if you drive it hard, goodness, you can see 30 miles per gallon on the low end on the Ford C-Max hybrid. And I know because I've experimented with it, just flooring it everywhere and that kind of thing. So you're still looking at, triple the efficiency driving hard, driving a Model 3 hard versus driving a sports car or even a hybrid hard. But again, that diverges pretty far when you compare apples to apples, which would be a premium level performance car in a gas car such as this versus a premium level performance sedan in the Model 3. It's an interesting case study. And this video was never meant to be an exact comparison of exact numbers and let's get down to the specific nitty-gritty. It's just a generalization of when you hear people, if you're a gas car owner and you have that mindset that I'd rather just hypermile a gas car, well, you can, and you will save yourself some gas money, and you'll use less resources and pollute less than if you drove it normally or drove it more aggressively. But I tell you, if you like driving hard, buy a Model 3. If you buy a Model 3, you can drive it hard. I don't want to say without guilt, but some people would look at it that way, but you can have your cake and eat it too. You can drive a Model 3 as hard as you want, and though you will diminish your range, you're still, with my long-range Model 3 rated at 325 miles, the hardest I've ever driven it, we were on the expressway with the AC cranked, going like 85 with traffic, and we saw it was like 220 miles of range on that charge. So you're still going to see decent range, even if you drive it hard, and it's going to cost you pennies to operate. So, I've heard people say that, well, I'm an aggressive driver, an EV doesn't fit me. Actually, an EV will fit you better as an aggressive driver than a gas car would. So that's my take on it, and I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, go ahead and give me a like, subscribe if you haven't done so already.